Hello everyone, I'm Priya Antony working as an assistant professor in Bharata College, Thrikkakara. Today we are going to have a discussion on the poem Jaguar by one of the giants of 20th century British poetry, Ted Hughes. So before getting into the poem, let's have a discussion on the poet Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes was born in Yorkshire in 1930. He was a modern English poet and children's writer. In 1936, he met and married the American poet Sylvia Plath. Since his childhood, he was a keen lover of animals and birds. A number of his works are named after animals, like the Thought Fox, his earliest poem, and the Rain Horse, his earliest story. And the poem which we are going to discuss is also named after a bird, Jaguar. And this poem is included in Ted Hughes' final collection, The Hawk in the Rain, which was published in 1957. In this poem, the Jaguar, the poet who has visited the zoo describes the worst condition of animals in it by comparing them with lifeless things. By doing so, the poet tries to expose the brutality of man's cruelty over other living creatures, and finally, he talks about the enthusiastic jaguar to depict that hope always prevails even among animals. Now let's have a look into the poem. The Jaguar. The apes yawn and adore their fleas in the sun. The parrots shriek as if they were on fire or strut, like cheap tarts to attract the staller with the nut. Fatigued with insolence, tiger and lion lie still as the sun. The boa constrictor's coil is a fossil. Cage after cage seems empty, or stinks of sleepers from the breathing straw. It might be painted on a nursery wall. But who runs like the rest past these arrives? At a cage where the crowd stands, stares, mesmerized, as a child at a dream, at a jaguar hurrying enraged. Through prison darkness after the drills of his eyes, on a short fierce fuse, not in boredom, the eye satisfied to be blind in fire. By the bank of blood, in the brain deaf the ear, he spins from the bars, but there is no cage to him. More than to the visionary his cell, his stride is wildernesses of freedom. The world rolls under the long thrust of his heel. Over the cage floor, the horizons come. Now let's discuss the poem stanza-wise. So in the first stanza, the poet introduces a number of animals. The apes yawn and adore their fleas in the sun. According to the poet, the apes are yawning and adoring their fleas. The word adore does not suit this situation. However, the poets want to tell that the attraction towards apes was always because of their playing over the branches. However, in the cage, they have been enslaved, and the only thing that they can do in it is to adore their fleas. The poet depicts them in a spiritless condition, engaged in yawning and adoring the fleas. By using the words such as adore and yawn, the poet tries to introduce two powerful images to suggest that the apes has nothing urgent to do, and so they feel sleepy. They also, instead of being annoyed, seem to enjoy the presence of the fleas on their bodies while basking in the warmth of the sun. In the second line, the parrots shriek as if they were on fire or strut like cheap tarts to attract the stroller with a nut. In the second line, the poet describes the parrots that are shouting in order to get the attraction from the passers-by or the visitors. The parrots are suffering in their chained life, and they make sensual gestures like street girls in order to get the attraction from the passers-by. And that is the reason why the poet have used the term cheap tarts. Because the term cheap tarts suggests that the parrots are using the attractive and colorful feathers in order to get the attraction from the passers-by. And the sounds that they make, particularly aimed at the strollers with nuts. And then, in the next line, fatigued with indolence, tiger and lion lie still as the sun. The boa constrictor's coil is a fossil. The lion and tiger that are normally active and swift have also become so lazy and they are tired of it. They are still like a sun, that is, they are ideally having a sun bath. And then the poet describes about the boa constrictors, which is a heavy body species of snake, which is coiled, and they seems to be like a fossil as they cannot move from the cage. Cage after cage seems empty or stinks of sleepers from the breathing straw. It might be painted on a nursery wall, but who runs like the rest past these arrives? And all these animals which are kept for amusement fail to attract the people by their laziness. The cages seems to be empty. The animals seems to be dead. And they all looks like painting in the nursery wall, but quite unattractive. And it is only the stink or the body odor that makes them seem alive. And then, the people aren't interested in seeing these sorts of animals, so they pass hurriedly through the cages. At a cage where the crowd stands, stares, mesmerized, as a child at a dream, at a jaguar hurrying enraged, through prison darkness after the drills of his eyes, on a short fuse, not in boredom, the eye satisfied to be blind in fire. And then a cage becomes the center of attraction for the visitors. It is the jaguar's cage. The jaguar holds the crowd mesmerized as a child in a trance. The people seem to be hypnotized like a child in a dream at the sight of jaguar. The jaguar is showing the signs of its nature. It is revolting around the cage, and it seems like it could break it any time. The jaguar doesn't seem to be boredom because, unlike other animals, jaguar is restless and a mobile machinery of destructive energy. And in the poem, the poet have used the term blind in fire, which refers to the rage and power of jaguar. And the poet says that the atmosphere in the cell is complete darkness, and it is compared to the fierce gleam in the jaguar's eyes. And the people prefer to be blinded by the splendor of jaguar's eyes, and they are locked in a fierce fuse that can explode any moment. By the bang of blood in the brain deaf the ear, he spins from the ear bars, and there is no cage to him. And in the next line, the poet have used the term bang of blood in the brain, and it is an alliteration to refer to its power. He whirls around the cage quickly in anger and desire. The cage that has slaved it physically cannot enslave his enthusiasm and vision. There is an attitude of wildness and freedom when he walks in the cage, and it seems like the whole world is rolling under the feet of the jaguar. And in the next line, we are told the term, there is no cage to him, which is ironic as he is in a cage, but it shows that he does not seize the cage, as he is focused with the freedom to such an extent that he refused to accept that, tragically, he will never be free. There are no bars for him, for nothing can imprison the magnificent jaguar, because the jaguar is beyond the bars and the taming. The world rolls under the long thrust of his heel. Over the cage floor, the horizons come. And in the last line, the poet have mentioned an image. It is like, over the cage floor, the horizons come. The plural horizon rather emphasizes the jaguar's tremendous power and suggests that the jaguar believes he is the driving force of the planet. He does not have to look outside the cage in order to look beyond the horizon, because the jaguar himself is the horizon. The poem very much describes the atmosphere of the zoo and how this particular jaguar overcomes this enclosed surrounding. The author's words are very passionate and strongly linked to the character and behavior of the jaguar. So the poet expects the reader to visualize the scene and have the same thoughts as the jaguar. He also expects to stress the key words and to read it in a flowing way, just like the jaguar's movement. The location is exploited in such a way that we are able to clearly understand the writer's themes, the nature's superiority and man's arrogance, as well as a sympathy towards the animals and the man's cruelty towards it. By this, we come to the end of the poem The Jaguar by Ted Hughes. Hope you all have enjoyed. Thank you.